Welcome back. Dozens of countries have been hit in a Chinese telecom hack. Multiple agency heads, including the FBI, DNI, holding closed-door classified briefings yesterday for senators on China's Salt Typhoon hacking campaign. It's burrowed deep inside American telecom companies that you use, like AT&T and Verizon. U.S. officials believe that the hackers likely stole data and information from more than 1 million American customers. With President-elect Donald Trump, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, senior congressional staffers, and U.S. security officials having their calls and their texts directly targeted and surveilled. The hacking campaign impacted telecom infrastructure globally, firms in dozens of countries, including at least 8 firms in the United States that we are talking about right now. The FBI is now urging these companies to boost their network security in response to the Chinese hack. Joining me now is Hudson Institute Senior Fellow, Atlas Organization founder, and the author of The Decisive Decade, Jonathan D.T. Jonathan, thanks very much for being here. This is an incredible story that China is now in our phones. And I don't know. I mean, is there anything we can do about it, that China is surveilling American citizens and leadership in Washington so heavily?
Well, look, I mean, what we can do about it is yet to be seen, but I think we have to look at the context here, Maria. I mean, this is, China is undertaking a direct cyber assault on this country. I mean, what we've seen with this hack, which, if people thought the spy balloon was bad, now see how bad it really is. I mean, China is in our telecommunications networks, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, pretty much everything that matters. So that's right in your phone. That's where they are. Whether it's that, whether it's TikTok, we can go back, rewind the clock earlier this year to another hacking initiative out of China called, Vault Typhoon, where they got into telecommunications, energy, critical infrastructure, water. I mean, what they're doing, in the words of the FBI director currently, they're preparing the ability to physically wreak havoc on our critical infrastructure at a time of their choosing. So, I think when you add all this up, I mean, on one hand, you have a country that has a global grand strategy that's preparing for war with the U.S. in the Pacific, but they're also undertaking a direct assault on this country through cyber, through fentanyl, which has now killed more Americans than the entirety of the Second World War. And, we have to strike back. I mean, we have to start getting into this fight for real, imposing serious costs on our main adversary. And I think Trump has a mandate on this. I mean, you now have, views of China at an all-time low, according to polls out of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs just very recently. And a majority of Americans now say that the U.S. should actively work to limit the growth of China's power. And this is just what we've got to do. We've got 2 years, really, to make this happen with, I think the mandate that came out of the election, and just to have real go time against the People's Republic of China, which is our main adversary, and they're getting ready for bigger things against this country.
The Wall Street Journal has previously reported on this hack, and they identified previously Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Lumen Technologies among the victims here. And yesterday in that press conference, an official from the Biden administration said that the Chinese compromised private companies, exploiting vulnerabilities in their systems as part of a global Chinese campaign that's affected dozens of countries around the world. And yet the Biden administration has done nothing about this. Once again, China rolls over America, and we see absolutely no response from the Biden administration. Let me get your take on what should be done. What is the proper response to communist China for all of this undermining of America, in your view?
Well, look, I mean, we still have this opportunity to execute what I've called economic containment, and I wrote about that in Decisive Decade. I mean, this is what we can do. We can stop the rise of China economically. We can target all their major corporations. I mean, their state is fully fused throughout the entire economy. I mean, all of the 5-year plans, every single strategic enterprise, all of the different technology initiatives. I mean, it makes a giant target set that the U.S., together with allies, will have to. We can't go it alone on the sanctions. But bottom line, we can target the entire economy and just cut down the growth, really terminate the the rise of China economically, undermine their ability to fund global grand strategy. You'll get a restriction, sort of pulling back of the Belt and Road. Then we have to go on a counteroffensive in trade and global markets as we start to push them back. Go after the banking system, go after the major strategic industries, and then execute a military buildup in the Pacific that makes it possible to maintain deterrence. And at that point, their grand strategy will be massively impaired. I mean, I think they have far fewer abilities to retaliate, for example, in a tariff war, as we're seeing. I mean, their new restrictions on critical minerals show, in a certain sense, how limited their options are. I mean, all of those minerals are available elsewhere in the world, so we then go and secure our supply chains, and you basically box them in, end the geopolitical rise, and then start to get time back on our side. And you can do all of that without kinetic war, even as they prepare to do that with us. I mean, our options are economic, and if we start using that, that's really going to be the end of their geopolitical rise.
Well, look, China is also trying to fight back, right? I mean, it's undermining America, and then when we talk about, sanctions or getting back at communist China, they come back at us. They've announced a ban on the export of key minerals used in the U.S. defense industry. Beijing planning to restrict graphite exports as well. These minerals are key components for semiconductors and fiber optic cables and military weapons like bullets. The ban coming a day after the U.S. Commerce Department said that it would cut China's access to advanced memory chips critical to AI, Jonathan. So you're talking about getting back in an economic way, Jonathan. So what does that mean in a practical sense in terms of policy?
Sure, and let's look at these bans for a minute, because I think it's very interesting. I mean, they've spent the last set of years putting laws together to try to respond to set their own set of sanctions and export controls, those sorts of things. Again, we have other options to source these minerals from elsewhere in the world, including, for example, antimony. We have a World War II era antimony mine in Idaho that's going to have to get moving now. But bottom line, the target set, as I see it, it's the banking sector and it's the State-Owned Assets and Supervision Commission. I mean, that is a list of 97 central state-owned enterprises, and that's really what you're talking about when you're talking about the Belt and Road, the expansion of their global ambitions. Even the islands built in the South China Sea were built by SASAC corporations, and we can target all of that through Treasury, through commerce, through, you could even get a little more interesting with that through special operations if needed in certain areas. And the bottom line is we have to go after their outbound economic initiatives. We can still do that. And a whole lot of that's really the core of their economic grand strategy. You add that to Belt and Road, sort of Made in China 2025, dual circulation, the various 5-year plans, all that core infrastructure is targetable. You start doing that, and it reduces the growth rate massively, and that's how you have the termination of the geopolitical rise. So I think it really comes down to doing that and expanding this. What the Biden administration did was the measures they were taking against China were limited to a pretty narrow band of high-tech targets, whereas if you start expanding this to strategic industries across the board, you take all the Made in China 2025 sectors, for example, you take all the key industrial projects of the PRC. I mean, they've got giant lists of what they're doing in the 5-year plans, and you start to target that for investment, for technology, and for market access. I mean, that's pretty much how this works.
We've got publicly traded companies trading on U.S. exchanges that don't even follow American laws. These are Chinese companies that remain on the exchanges. That certainly would send a message if you remove those companies. But there's also education. I'm sorry?
Do that too. No, they shouldn't be on our exchanges, and we also should have our pensions. You shouldn't have thrift putting money into China. You shouldn't have the state pensions doing it, and you're going to have hard, real conversations with BlackRock, MSCI, and the other, major funnels of passive capital flows into China.
Well, I'm looking at a piece from the Washington Examiner. Ford Foundation paid CCP allies millions to aid China's global influence operations. So it's even more than the large money managers. I mean, the Ford Foundation, one of the largest private charities in the world, apparently spending time in the last 4 years shoveling millions into branches of the Chinese government with the stated goal of helping China carry out its strategy of funding foreign infrastructure projects to accumulate influence. I mean, everybody's got to get on board here in terms of understanding the threat. Then there's South Korea. The South Korean opposition lawmakers are planning to vote this weekend to impeach the president there, Yoon Suk-yeol, after his attempt to impose martial law, while the ruling party says it plans to oppose impeachment. Yoon accepted the resignation of South Korea's defense minister earlier today, who reportedly recommended to declare martial law. Jonathan, your thoughts on what happened in South Korea?
Sure. I mean, it's too early to tell. I think political volatility in Korea is sort of a surprise to people. I mean, it's still a vital ally. It's very important to the defense in the Pacific, to island chain defense, to pretty much the whole picture. So, you know, we're going to have to obviously have very strong, stable relations with Korea. I mean, and you know, China has shown that they have trade leverage over Korea. They've done that in the past. So there are going to be some tensions here in our own relationship, but not necessarily because of this. I mean, I think the restored stability, the martial law decree is gone, and you know, hopefully that all just returns to political stability.
Jonathan, thank you. Jonathan D.T. Ward on Communist China this morning.